Heyo! It's been a while.
Wow. It's February, my dudes.
Welcome to 2021 Vic and Hope, where we are infrequent and inconsistent. as we tend to do.
As we are wont to do.
I mean, it's the winter. Everyone's fucking inconsistent in the winter, right?
I mean, if PewDiePie can pretend he's never shown his face, then we can be inconsistent in winter months of YouTube uploading.
Yeah, dude, January. All the ad revenue goes away in January, bro. That's a relatable problem for us.
Bro, hashtag
completely.
Relatable, am I right?
We've totally made money off of these videos on YouTube. Thank you, loyal patrons, for sticking around, even though I fail you consistently. Got a fart.
Oh. Ooh. No, that was scary.
That wasn't a good fart. I was expecting like a... I'm
that
cutting the
like
fart, obviously. I'm gonna cut the fart.
Some repercussions.
Yeah.
Do you think there's repercussions?
No.
No? Okay, that's
just
good.
a weird one.
That's good. That's good. Whoa! We finally did it! We watched Sangatsu No Lion!
桐山玲これが僕の名前 C 級1組5段17歳職業プロ棋士
March comes in like a lion.
Go us.
Which I'm guessing is just a really ass English translation of that title. Because to me, Sangatsu No Lion sounds like March's lion.
Yeah, March
which,
is a lion.
Like, would make sense because it's the town, the borough they live in is Sangatsu. Like, that is where the story takes place.
Well, that's where the
like
lives,
the main guy would be the lion of Sangatsu.
Well,
Sangatsu's
he doesn't
lion.
live there, but yeah.
Well, like, but it's,
yeah.
but like that's probably what the title is.
Well, I
is
mean,
like the lion of Sangatsu.
It's the Attack on Titan scenario.
Yeah, Attack on Titan scenario.
Shingeki no Kyojin is not Attack on Titan, but
yeah. Same thing with Hajime no Ippo, which I've roughly translated to like it's Ippo's beginning or Ippo's first steps. Like Ippo means first step. Like it's the start of his journey, and the English title is Fighting Spirit.
Fighting Spirit.
I don't know
very
where they
faithful,
come up with this
very
shit.
Very loyal to the original sentiment.
Is the Japanese? It's just too poetic, I guess.
The Japanese are too concise. Anyway.
Enough beating around the bush. So Sangatsu no Lion. What was your exposure to this before going into it? What were your expectations?
Well, I mean, I had watched 3 or 4 episodes when the show first started airing.
Yeah.
So I already had some exposure to the show. I kind of just like fell off watching it as it aired. But everyone kept talking about how great it is and how it's a masterpiece and how great it is. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll get around to watching it. And then I didn't get around to watching it for like literally years. And now we watched it.
Similar story for me. It's like, tried it out when it aired. I was a big fan of Honey and Clover. I actually watched all of that.
Honey and Clover a lot.
I had watched season 1 a long time ago. I watched season 1 and 2 in college, and I was a fan of that. And then Sangatsu no Lion comes around. I wasn't really into the first couple episodes. I had watched that when it aired, but it's the time since then where everyone's just been like, it's a masterpiece, it's a 10 out of 10, it's a masterpiece, it's the greatest anime ever made. And so that gives you a certain perspective going into it. And so it's like, I want to get it up front, like what we think of this show before we start talking about it, because I'm going to have a bunch of criticisms.
Uh-oh.
And I know everyone fucking hates when I criticize some masterpiece that everyone fucking loves.
Listen, Victor, I don't see you out there writing an anime.
And I want to say, it's a great show. I get it. I get why everyone gets it a 10 out of 10. I totally understand. It's not my genre at this point in my life. Maybe when I was in high school, I probably would have given this a 10 out of 10,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, if I was in high school, the things that I take up issue with about it may not have been a problem for me.
Yeah.
But as a 28-year-old, it's a little bit harder to gloss over the things that did stand out to me.
Yeah, and I don't want to present it from like an ageist perspective of like, oh, only teens will relate to this. It's like, it's just that right now where I am, most of the story I did not care about in terms of like a relating to it. Like, I related to the character a lot in the beginning, and then, less as it goes on, but that's besides the point. It's just that, like, I would give this, like, an 8 out of 10, It's just not a 10 out of 10 flawless masterpiece to me. It's not my favorite anime I've ever seen. It didn't blow me away in any way. I kind of left it going like, oh, I wish I hadn't been overhyped for this for like 10 fucking years.
I think that's the problem, is the hype is like, it kind of poisoned the well.
Yeah.
In a way where it's like, it's a really good show, it's really solid, there's a lot to like about it, but when you constantly hear people saying, it's a masterpiece, it's a masterpiece, it's a masterpiece, and then you watch it and you're like, well, I don't feel that way, like that was a masterpiece, you feel a little disappointed.
Yeah, especially when it's like, you watch 50 episodes of it, And I feel like the ground they covered in 50 episodes wasn't quite what I expected, given the expectations that had been levied, Where when you feel like something's like, I understand this is a long-running manga.
Yeah,
and so
definitely.
you know that it's not gonna, like,
it's
resolve
not gonna resolve
itself.
its whole...
But usually when people hype a show up this much, there is resolution in 50 episodes to something. Like, there's some sort of climax.
Big chunk of resolution.
And, like, the show kind of wraps up in a way where it tries to get to some sort of, like, it gives you a little ending, but it kind of feels like, oh, last 2 episodes, let's just, like, tie this little arc together so it feels like something ended here, but it really nothing super dramatic to be changed in the end. It just kind of is over, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, well, it's a very go read the manga.
Yeah, go read the manga. Season 3 when? I don't know, but it's like, I was left feeling like, why did I watch 50 episodes of this? I don't know.
Which,
I don't want to be too negative on it.
Yeah, I don't want to be too negative, because there is a lot that I enjoyed about this, and there are a lot of characters and concepts that I really liked, and of course it's beautiful. Like, it's a really soothing aesthetic show to watch, and that stays consistent pretty much throughout the entire runtime. There's just some decisions and some places that the story goes where I was just like, I'm just not feeling it, dog. I'm just not feeling it.
Alright. So I want to get into what I loved about it before I go into what I didn't like about it, so that I can hopefully demonstrate that I was fucking paying attention and understand the appeal of the fucking show.
Okay.
But, like, if you haven't seen Sangatsu no Futatsu, fucking... I would, genre-wise, I would describe it as a slice-of-life anime combined with a sports anime to create, like, this sort of mishmash slice-of-life sports experience.
Which can be good.
Yeah, which it can be great. For me, it's kind of a detriment, because it ultimately, like, kind of... It takes long breaks from, like, the character drama elements to get into the sports drama elements. But then, as soon as you get invested in sports drama elements, it goes back to character drama stuff. And so it leaves me feeling like I got not the best of either world,
you don't get a satisfying amount of either.
Yeah, it's like I got a great experience with both, but, like, the sports element was not as good as Hajime no Ippo, the journey where it got and everything that happened, it's like I felt this better somewhere else, especially when shogi is such like an ass backwards game to comprehend through an anime storytelling.
Yeah, as a stupid American who's never played or had shogi explained to them, you're kind of like, okay,
Yeah, I mean, it goes out of its way to explain shogi, like, the pieces and the basic rules early on.
The most basic.
It doesn't go further to explain, like, tactical theory or anything. It just kind of leaves you with the basics.
Fine.
Yeah. Because it's more about the arc and the dramatic storytelling of the scene.
Yeah.
But then some of those scenes go on for a long time.
Yeah. I feel like you can definitely still have that tension and, like, understand the stakes of, like, what's going on and what a particular move might mean, even without having the context of really understanding shogi.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a problem with them not going really deep into how shogi works.
Yeah. And it has genius writing in the way that it helps you understand what's going on without knowing what the hell the game is. It's one of those where you start to go like, I wonder if people who actually really know this game think this is fucking dumb, or if they think it's amazing.
It's like how when you watch a hospital show on TV and they do something that like would never, it's not how an ultrasound machine actually works or whatever, but no one knows because they don't work in a hospital.
Exactly, like sort of like Hajime no Ippo with boxing. It's like it's a huge exaggeration of everything going on in boxing. You know, it's like obviously
to make it more
nothing like this in real life. Same thing with any sports anime. I think this does a way better job than something like Queen's Gambit, the Netflix show about chess, where, like, they have a similar approach to the structure of games, whereas, like, that one does it tries to focus more on the character interaction and the faces and the expressions and everything to tell the story because it knows they can't recreate a chess game and no one will know what the hell's going on. But that one does a lot more, like, they latch on to, like, a few chess phrases. And so it always has to be like, oh, she's setting up the whatever. And it's like, who fucking cares? Like, I don't care. March comes in like a lion doesn't do a lot of, like, oh, he's doing this maneuver. Like
they mention a lot of, like, starting setups and things, but it's always in passing. It's never...
Yeah.
It's never that important, you know?
It's just handled in a much better way, with much finer detail, and it lets you... Like, it does give you the moments where the characters are thinking in their head, like, what they're gonna do next, and you see them going through the possibilities, and they're explaining their logic and, like, how they actually feel about the moves happening. You're not just, like, looking at eyes squinting and characters breathing heavily and getting everything out of that. You get a lot more of the sideline commentary and, like, the anime shonen shit that makes the scenes more exciting that way.
Which, honestly, writing a scene like that has to be really challenging to, like, make someone feel that and understand that when they have no clue what's really going on. Like, that does take a lot of skill.
Yeah, and that's where you know that whoever is writing it does have a great understanding of the game.
Definitely.
Because they somehow construct a narrative around each match and then have, like, different players have different styles and stuff.
Yeah. Which I think they do a good job
the show does a good job of giving you a sense of, like, each character's personality and how they play and how it's different, even though you don't know what the fuck they're really doing.
What they're doing,
like, they're explaining it in a way.
What they're doing. Like, you get the vibe. You get everyone's vibe. And they have so many great characters within the, like, Shogi Association.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many unique characters that are a lot of fun to spend time with.
I'm trying to piece together a structured way to talk about this show, and it doesn't exist because
right?
there's 50 fucking
it's
episodes.
It's a bit of a mishmash as well.
Yeah, but
there's times where it focuses on sports, and times when it focuses on drama, and times when it doesn't focus on Rei at all, and a little bit of everything.
It's all over the place. But like, you've got your sports narrative, and then you've got your human drama narrative, where you have your wonderful cast of cute girls.
Yes.
And they're all great, you know. I love them, especially oldest sister, because
Akari.
She's ridiculously attractive. One of the best character designs, perhaps, of all time. Beautiful, beautiful character. Super fun to watch. Great personalities. Everyone's super good and comfy, and it's like it's got that ultimate comfy feel of everything. Like, Shaft has that amazing ability to make everything so rosy and pleasant, and just, like, the perfect sound effect will play with the most aesthetic pastel thing, and you're just like, yay.
It is a very comfy show, for sure.
It'll always go into gross detail about everything they're cooking and how good it is, and you get to see the reaction of tasting it and being like, everything tastes so amazing in Japan.
It's like Shokugeki no Soma.
Yes. You get to see so many food coom faces as they try some new delicious dessert.
And their food always looks so good. I'm always like, that does look really good. I want it.
Yeah. And, like, there's just so much going on.
There's a lot going on. So I would say, so your basic premise, Rei is the main boy. He's real good at shogi. He's really dedicated himself to shogi because his parents passed away and he was adopted by a gentleman who was a professional shogi player, and basically feels like the only reason he was adopted is because this guy saw potential in him to also become a professional shogi player. Yes. And it creates all sorts of complexes for him. He ends up moving out, like, as soon as he gets into high school. And it's kind of taken under the wing of Akari and Hina, the two older sisters in the family, and then there's their little sister Momo.
Because the oldest sister sees that he's a skin and bones,
yes,
and it's like, I need to fatten you up. Because she's so motherly and she loves plump boys.
Yes.
And you basically spend all of season 1 with them being so aggressively kind, breaking through his hard shell of being a dumb fucking neat.
A burden boy.
Yeah, and that was my favorite part for his character arc was, like, season 1 I really loved.
Yeah, season 1 was really good.
Season
really
2 really dragged for me, which we'll get into. But, like, yeah, I liked the structure of season 1, and I liked his character arc of, like, being the recluse boy who has to fucking... just learn how to, like, rely on people around him and also not be, like, afraid of the people around him. Because he's had this life where he doesn't feel like he can trust anyone. He was bullied by his adopted siblings. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he's just taken so much shit from the world that he just doesn't recognize anyone's good intentions. Even though everyone around him loves him and thinks he's the shit. But it's like he's just so traumatized from being isolated in that way that he cannot connect with the people around him.
Well, and he has like a huge complex about feeling like he's a parasite.
Yeah.
Like he's just taken things from people who deserve them.
Yeah, because that's what his step-siblings put into his mind, because they were like, he came into the house and he was the special boy and he got the attention that they wanted. Not necessarily better attention, just the attention that they wanted from the father figure, because he was shogi boy, even though ultimately his life fucking sucked. Like, he didn't get anything out of that. He was just like, his life became dedicated to shogi and cleaning the fucking house.
Yeah, just being helpful in any way, like meeting his parents' expectations and being helpful in any way that he could.
Yeah, and so he developed that complex of, like, he wanted to get out on his own as soon as he could, and he ends up moving out, and he's got his own... He's still in high school. At the start of the show, he's 17, and he's got his own apartment, and he's paying for it himself with his shogi money. And he's doing that just to be on his own and not be a leech, and he thinks he's this huge burden on his step-parents and stuff, and, like, it's all just projection in his head from being, like, psychologically damaged from his siblings. Yeah. And, like, that all I fucking love. It's quite relatable really well. And nice. And it's that I relate to that character with that anxiety of just, like, thinking that everyone hates you when no one does.
Yeah.
Like, it's just all in your head. It's just projection from unrelated traumas, and it just compounds into, like, this feeling of just being alone and not trusting anyone, and it takes him a long time to get over that.
Yeah.
Something that I also experience in life.
A very realistic thing that a lot of people experience,
This is part of why Hope is my only friend. Because I have a constant conflicts in my head where I just think everyone fucking hates me and everyone thinks I'm useless. And it's persisted into adulthood.
I mean, I think that's something a lot of people, especially, young adults can really empathize with.
Yes, those are strong points in his character. That's mostly fleshed out through season 1. Season 2, he feels a little flatter to me because he's kind of just becomes a really good...
He's kind of accomplished an arc, and now he's just waiting.
He's just a really good boy, and everyone's like, he's such a good boy, and he's doing good boy things, and, like, he has little hills and valleys, but, like, ultimately...
But they're so small compared to...
Like, season 1, yeah. Where, like, season 1, it's always... Oh, there was something that I really loved is there's an episode where he talks about the warmth of the kotatsu and about how, like, when you're under the kotatsu, it's super warm and you never want to leave because it's comfy, you're at peace, it's great. And he compares the girl's house with the kotatsu, and he's like, I need to stop going there because it's too comfortable.
Because the world is unbearable when I leave.
And there's this great scene of, he has this great time there, and then he goes out into the winter, and it's like a fucking storm.
Yeah, he's walking across that desolate bridge, and the wind is just smacking him in the face. It's frigid outside, and he's being hit with the full reality of, like, this is what my life mostly is, with brief moments of respite.
But it's also what he makes his life.
Yes, well, he puts himself in that place.
Because, like, he could have these warm, loving people around all the fucking time. He could probably move in with them. He could move back with his step-parents. like, he could have a better life, but he feels like he deserves the cold, frigid, shitty life that he's giving himself,
Right.
and it only brings him down. And, like, his overarching mental health journey is the people around him saying, like, you need to take better care of yourself, because it ends up affecting his ability to play shogi,
Right.
and making him really shitty at what he does, because he stresses himself out, he never eats, he runs out of food, and he just sits around.
And he's just like, oh, I can't be bothered to go get more food because it's too far away.
Yeah, and so he himself puts himself in this fucking box, this cold, isolated box, because he's too afraid to open up to the people around him. Extremely fucking relatable for me. And the best thing ever was the metaphor with the kotatsu, because I distinctly remember an arc of my life where me and Hope were first dating, especially, where it was like, I would go to your house, and it would be warm, and it would be so fucking great. It was like, I'm on cloud 9, I'm hanging out with Hope, this is the best thing ever, and then as soon as I leave, I'm like, oh god, I'm back into my actual life, what the fuck is happening, this is hell. And then when you got your own house, you know, when you were sort of living on your own, and I go over there and I'd be like, why do I ever leave? Like, why, in God's name, do I go home? It doesn't make any fucking sense. And then I go home to the rad house with Digi and Ben Saint and Devu, and it was like a living hell in this pigsty. And I'm like, why the fuck do I ever leave? And it was just like this absurd thing. But then I also felt like I had to do that, you know, to get my schoolwork done and to motivate myself to work harder and stuff like that. Like, I did the same thing even though it didn't make any fucking sense. And life has been so much better since then it changed, you know?
Because when you're sitting under the kotatsu, all you want to do is take a nap. You know?
Exactly. And we still struggle with that. I still struggle with just wanting to nap all the time and be comfy, because life is so fucking good, living with Hope, and it's so nice. I just want to do nothing all day.
But Ray also has, like, kind of before the end of the second season, when he's starting to come around, starting to come out of his shell, I really liked the arc where he ends up kind of being a caretaker for Shimada, the older guy with the stomach ulcers.
Yeah.
And he, like, Shimada has a tournament out of town, and he decides to go with him, and, like, the whole time he's basically, like, taking care of him, running and getting him medicine, making sure he's taking care of himself, sleeping. And you can see that, like, he's starting to grow and figure out, like, okay, these people have done this for me, and in turn, I can do this and help them.
And it's another relatable aspect of him, is that he wants to be useful, and he wants to fulfill a role, and he wants to fit in wherever he can, and he just wants to be helpful. And, like, it's perfect for him to be with someone like Shimada, who's fucked up, because, like, that guy needs help all the time, and he wants to help him. And there's this relationship of, like, I've always been the kind of person who becomes friends with my teachers, you know? I still work with my professor from high school who everyone hates except for me, you know? And, like, I'm his friend, and I still work with him, and I've gotten a lot of opportunities from that, you know? And, like, I did the same thing with my drama teacher in high school. Like, I was the pet student, you know? And, like, I hated feeling like I'm a teacher's pet or something, but, like, I just wanted to help out wherever I could, and so I would end up in all of these roles because no one else would fucking do anything, and I was the only one who wanted to be helpful, so I'd be the one staying after school to help the teacher, or staying on the weekend to help the teacher or something, just because I wanted to be helpful, partially because I didn't feel useful anywhere else in my life, you know, similar to how our boy does. So there's that line of, like, is he doing too much? Is he being taken advantage of? No, because he wants to be doing this. He really wants to help out.
He's doing it of his own volition, and he can tell that, like, Shimada would never ask him to do it, you know?
He's just gonna do it anyways.
So
you know?
it feels much more justified because you know it's something he genuinely wants to be doing.
Mm-hmm. And it's nice. It was a nice relationship, and yeah, he gradually. Well, there's sort of the arc in season 2, which I want to get to. What I think the overarching theme of the show is, because this is the part that I like the most. I think it's really solid, and it does an incredible job of illustrating this over and over and over again. Because the real point of the show, and the point, like, every single character relates back to a central theme of motivation for why they do what they do.
Yeah.
And motivation for why live your life. What is your purpose? What are you striving for? What motivates you to do your job? What motivates you to go through your career? And, like, every single character faces that question or illustrates that question in some kind of way. And almost all of the, big shogi battles with the older people all come down to answering that single question. And for Main Boy, like, his overarching thing, like, initially, his original motivation for playing shogi was a connection with his dad. Where, like, he first got into it because his dad was into it. It was something he did with his dad, and that's the only reason he was playing shogi. He was naturally good at it. It made his dad happy to see him playing it. It made this other older guy happy to see him playing it, and so he was like, oh, I'm getting adult attention. I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, it was a way he could make a connection with his dad, who was busy all the time.
Exactly. His dad was busy all the time. He didn't get enough attention. This was a thing he could do with him, so that's why he cared about shogi. His dad dies. Now shogi is... Well, he describes it mostly as his only escape from the fucking living hell of where his situation is.
It just occupies his mind so he doesn't have to live constantly within the moment of the horrible things he's feeling.
But it's still a connection with his dad. It's still the last thing that sort of he could do with him. So it's like reliving that connection, and then it's also... it's the only thing that gets him praise from his new stepfather.
His adoptive dad.
And it's the only thing he could do to escape because he's just living in a nightmare and he's just constantly studying so that he doesn't have to interact with anything else in his life. So it ends up getting to the point where he gets good at it and he becomes a pro, because his whole motivation was like, if I become a pro, I can live on my own, and then I won't be this burden anymore.
Then I won't be a parasite to these people anymore.
So when he accomplishes that, now he has no goal, and he has no purpose, and he's just living alone, and he fucking hates himself, and he's like, what am I doing? And so he loses grip on what his motivation is, and that's why he keeps losing battles and shit. Because what's the point? He's not trying hard. He has no reason to do what he's doing.
He's just kind of drifting.
And so his arc becomes like, how do I, like, what will become his purpose for doing what he does? Does he love it? Does he hate it? Who is he doing it for? Is he doing it for himself? Does he care about being the best? Does he have a career? He doesn't know the answer to any of these questions. And we explore that through all these different characters who come in, and, like, you've got fucking... the best one to illustrate it is the old man. Because that was a great arc. Who's the oldest guy who had the battle with Shimada?
I can't remember his name. Yeah. He's friends with the chairman.
Yeah, but each guy, like, Shimada's motivation is he grew up playing shogi with all the old people in his village, and he just wants to make those people proud.
Yeah.
Like, his whole motivation is, I want to make my village proud, I want to represent them, and, like, that is his ultimate motivation and driving force to play shogi.
Because he comes from this tiny town, and growing up, the people who taught him were always praising him all the time, and he did all this, like, community outreach to try and bring shogi to his tiny town, and the people always like, oh, you're gonna be the first Meijin from our town, and it's gonna be fucking sick, dude.
Yeah, so that keeps him going. And then you got the oldest guy who's like, he's wearing the hopes and dreams of all of the people who he knew from the past who have dropped out over time, and he's carrying the giant burden of being the last old fuck who's still good at shogi and is still hanging in there. Yeah. And so, like, he will not quit because he's bearing this weight, and he has to keep going. Yes. And so it's like each character has those motivations, and we go in great depth exploring them with each subsequent fight and stuff. You've got fucking, rival kid who's dying, and is like, shogi is his life, because it's like, this is... he could be fucking gone at any moment. This is the one thing he's good at, because he's not physically fit. He can't do anything because he's terminally ill. And so, you explore all of these ideas through all these different characters. And then the season 2 arc sort of becomes an interesting commentary on Main Boy, because his motivation becomes... So there's the girl... What's the girl's name? Hina. Hina is a fucking child. She's in middle school.
Literally. She is literally a child.
And the big overarching plot of season 2 is Hina's getting bullied. Because she had a friend who was getting bullied, and she got bullied so bad that she had to switch schools, and Hina was very sad, and then she became the new subject of the bullying because she stuck up for the other girl.
She stood up for her friend.
And so she getting bullied. And so, what's the main boy's name? I don't want to keep... Ray?
Ray.
Okay, so Rei's motivation becomes, he's got it in his head, he wants to help with the bullying and he doesn't know how. So he's like, I'm gonna raise a whole bunch of money from doing shogi for Hina and her family to like take the burden off and help them out. And so he becomes super motivated because he's doing it for someone else. Because all along he didn't have a motivation to do it for himself. He doesn't care about himself. You see, he wants to help other people. That's all he really cares about, is helping the people around him. So he becomes like, I'm gonna do shogi because it's the only thing I could do, and I can do it to help the people around me. Which is not the right motivation for him to be doing that. But I like that he goes through this arc of, like, overcompensating in that direction.
Finding what is really his motivation.
So that he can come back full circle and find his own motivation. And I like that a lot. That's an arc that I've gone through myself of, like, I'm going to do this to make other people happy because, I want to kill myself. I don't care about myself. I'll do it for other people. But then it's like, you can't, that's not sustainable.
Yeah, you can't do that for the rest of your life.
Especially when, like, other people have to just resolve their problems on their own, which is ultimately what happens.
Well, and like, bullying is going to be a transient thing. Yeah. It's not going to be forever that you're bullied. And
also, people don't want your fucking handouts. They don't want to burden, like, they don't want to feel like they're burdening him by having him get all this money. Like, they're not the kind of people that take money anyways. Like, if he raised a bunch of money, they would not accept it.
Definitely not.
So he's just doing it for himself to make himself feel better because he can't do anything.
To make him feel like he is doing something for her. Yeah, because he feels powerless, which he is, let's be real. There's nothing you can do as an outsider in that situation, realistically speaking.
And it's something that I've come to realize with life, early on, which is that you can't really help the people around you besides just being supportive when they need you. Like, when they come to you, that's all you can really do. And, like, trying to help, like, just trying to, like, what ultimately impacts Hina is just him, like,
supporting her.
Yeah, supporting her,
like,
being
going
there.
Out of his way to be thoughtful and supportive when he knows that she's struggling.
Yeah.
That's really what matters.
It had nothing to do with him playing shogi or any of that shit, He never gave her any money. It's like, just him being a good friend was enough. And that's what a lot of people need to realize. It's just like, people gotta work through their own shit. Yeah. You just kind of gotta be on their side, Yeah. There's a lot of learning that with Hina, with the older sister and stuff. And they learn it from the grandpa, because when she first comes in about the bullying, like, they didn't know how to approach it at first. And they didn't know if she did the right thing with her friend and stuff. And the grandpa's just like, it has overwhelming support. And then the older sister realizes, like, I should have been like that. I should have just been overly supportive, because ultimately it doesn't matter what decision was made. The person who's your family is right, and you should support them wholeheartedly.
Well, especially because what she did is morally the correct thing. Like, supporting the person who was being bullied, who is your friend. Yeah. It only makes sense that you would stand up for them. Of course, that's the right thing.
But the grandpa was also like, I would have hesitated too, because, like, the initial thing is, I'm not sure, but it's like, you trust the victim. You show them support because you need to make them, they needed to make her feel not guilty for what she did, and she ultimately doesn't feel guilty for what she did because she stands by her morals,
And I mean, with a character like Akari, the older sister, I mean, she's 22, 23.
Yeah.
So, like,
she's not that old. Yeah.
She's forced into this scenario where I think their parents died when her mom died when she was, like, 19. Mm-hmm. Like, she had just finished high school, and she was suddenly forced to be a parent and, like, the house runner for her two younger siblings. Like, of course she never had, she hasn't had the life experience to be able to make a decision like that on the fly. She's already had so much, like, pushed onto her that, of course, there's going to be moments when she's not going to make the right call.
Yeah, but when it comes to the sports anime theming aspect of it, where I talked about, like, the overarching theme of motivations and shit, Shogi creates a cool, unique framework for telling this sort of story, because it's one of the few sort of sporty careers where there's a huge variety of age groups and a huge variety of people at different points in their career coming together at the same time. Where, like, in a lot of sports anime, it's all high schoolers.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't have the commentary of the guy who's been in it for 50 years coming in. And, like, a lot of those sports, you peak in high school and college and then you're out.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't get all these different perspectives of different people coming in and showing, like, how you evolve your motivations with age and how you stick to it, because, like, you're gonna change over time, and you have to find these ways to keep your passion alive and sort of realize why you're here, what is the purpose of your life, you know, what are you gonna do with it? It sort of presents the existential dread of, like, how short and how small your life is, and when you choose a career path like shogi that's so specific, it's like being a speedrunner. It's like you're in this tiny fucking community and you have to dedicate your whole life to all of your time dedicated to it, so you better figure out why you're doing it, because, like, your life is gonna fly by really fucking fast. Because you're dedicated to this craft, you know? You become, all of a sudden you're this older guy, your career's fucking over, and then what do you do after that? You have no idea, because this has been your entire life, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. the ground it covers in terms of, like, why are you alive? Why do you want to keep doing what you do?
That really is pretty unique, because in the show you do see the full spectrum from the time Rei is a child to, like, the oldest player in shogi.
Yeah.
And their thoughts and how they play and what their motivations are. You get to see kind of all of it from across the entire board.
And it's a perspective where a 17-year-old in high school is playing shogi against 65-year-old men. Like, there's no other avenue with
there's no sport where that happens, you know?
It has to be sort of a competitive game where all ages are welcome, you know? And it's crazy to think that a high schooler can outpace someone who's got that much time and experience with it. And sort of, you know, it shows just how talented he is and how talented all the young people are at the game, that they can fucking be on this level to even come close to being able to beat one of these fucking guys.
But I think it's also interesting because I think that's the kind of dynamic that could only exist in a sport like that outside of at least the United States.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in the United States, if something like that existed, the older players would feel so disrespected by the fact they were playing a 17-year-old. They'd be like, this fucking little snot-ass, punk-ass bitch, I'm not playing against him. Fuck this kid.
Well, I mean, you see it a lot of the older players that they are fucking bitter as fuck when it comes to the younger people.
They take it seriously.
Yeah. But they know that the young people are talented and they're gonna get wrecked.
Like, they do acknowledge their strength and, like, their skill. It's not like they're just like, these fucking dumb idiots.
That's some of the best earlier stuff where he's fighting, like, all these older dudes and they all get pissed, but then they hang out with him and he talks to them a lot.
Yeah, they're like, all right, well, you have to take me out to dinner now, and he just doesn't.
But it's also like these guys are used to getting fucking owned by young people all the time, especially the lower level people. Like, they've been getting fucking wrecked by young people for 30 years. Like, they know that they're not gonna win. They suck ass.
That's true.
And that some people are just fucking really talented or just study harder, you know?
Yeah.
And then there's some funny motivations with early characters where one guy's just like, I just keep playing shogi because if I retire, I'll be stuck with my wife and kids. And I don't want to be stuck with my wife and kids, so I'm never going to retire. And it's like, that's so real. You know that's a real guy who just does not want to, like, take the responsibility of going home. So he'll just keep losing at this game forever and pretending like he's got a career.
Yeah. Or, like the younger guy who's super eccentric and will take all of his opponents up on a mountain and, like, go mountain climbing with them
to like, create a bond so that they love him,
so that they can't beat him because they like him too much.
Yeah,
it's like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
They say he saves their life. That's right, he saves their life.
But yeah, so it's like, all this to say, I think it's a great show in just like, it's really, the downsides for me were, I just didn't care enough about the bullying arc. Like, I just didn't feel invested enough. I thought it was a little overdramatic, especially towards the beginning.
A bit overdrawn, but
I like where it goes. I like the outcomes. I understand where they were going with it and what they wanted to get to, and it was great in the end. Even when it comes down to Hina is the kind of person, when it comes to life motivations, like, life is sort of easy for someone like her, where she's just so outgoing, and so there's no element of self-doubt in her person whatsoever. She's just completely motivated, and she immediately figures out, I want to make these sweets for the shop. And she becomes 100% mentally dedicated to that, and she just wants to do it. She doesn't need a big complex motivation. She doesn't need like this web of things. It is like
there's no existential like why am I here?
There's a passing the torch from her mom. It was something her mom did, and so now she's obviously proud that she can do it because her mom was doing it, but it's ultimately like life is simple for this person, partially because she's a child.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, she still relates in that greater narrative. There's the bully character who's being lectured by the teacher once all the bullying narrative is resolved. And she is the ultimate, like, middle school girl who thinks she's seen beyond the veil and is like, what's the point of life? What's the point of trying at anything? It's all pointless. And so she is like,
bullshit, dude.
you know, the ultimate antithesis to everyone else in the show. And
dude.
The teacher ultimately goes like, you know, I don't know what the point of all this is. I'm just the kind of person who just went through life and didn't question it and ended up where I am. He's like, there's nothing to it. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, you just gotta, like, you're just alive. There is no point. The point is whatever you assign it, and just, that's it.
Yeah.
You just gotta live. You just gotta be alive and enjoy what you can, because you don't want to be like that girl who has nothing. You know?
I mean, yeah, for a character like that, there is no satisfying answer to that question. It's like, all right, dude, go post an R atheism or something. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
because she wants people to tell her this response that she could be disappointed with and like annoyed with, and so really the best response is there's nothing. Figure it out.
Yeah, like, well, that's kind of up to you, dude. I don't know.
Everyone's asking the same fucking question. Like, she thinks she's unique and she figured it out, and like, there's no meaning of life. And it's like, this is what everyone knows. Everyone fucking knows. You just gotta not think about it.
It's a very middle school thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I relate to that, girl.
You think you're real smart, you're in middle school, you know, oh, what does it all mean anyway? It's all fucking pointless, dude. We're all gonna die.
Yeah. So I like where the arc went for all the characters, but I've got pretty bored in the middle there.
Yeah, it's a bit rough in how long it gets drawn out, which, I mean, I get it, because bullying can happen over multiple semesters, multiple years, but also bullying is a part of high school life, middle school life, like...
Yeah.
That's sort of just how it is.
You know, I didn't love the romantic pairing of Rei and Hina.
That I was not a
fan
of,
like, you go through all of season 1 and it's not really put out there that much, and it's like I got used to seeing Hina as like, this is a little kid. Yeah. She wears a dress with jeans under it. To me, that is the anime sign of a child. She's got pigtails. She acts like a little kid.
She acts like a middle schooler.
It's not like she acts like a portrayal of a teenager, you know? She acts like a little kid, and so it's weird when it starts to become this romantic thing, and it's like, I get, Rei's emotionally stunted, he's psychologically stuck in middle school.
It makes sense, but...
It's fine. It's just like, but he is 18, and she is 13, and it just feels, and it's like, they handle it tastefully as much as they can.
It's never...
I get with Japan, it's kind of different, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just like the way that she is such a little kid. And then like they try to kind of save it at the end when she graduates and is going to high school. She cuts her hair and they show her in like a mature outfit and they're going to the same school. And it's like, yeah, but now he's 19 and she's 14.
Yeah.
Like, you're not saving this for me.
Yeah, do not.
And like, you don't just get into high school and you're a fucking adult now.
Right? like, all right, I am no longer a child. I'm in high school.
Like, it was an interesting portrayal of, like, you know, they've shown her to be a little kid this whole time, and then she cuts her hair, and it's like, she looks mature. You could be attracted to her now.
Cool.
Now this relationship could actually happen, and it's like, but I don't want that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't really settle well with me.
Especially, like, I'd rather he feel like their brother and, like, move in with them and be part of the family that way, you know?
Especially because, it just, I don't know, maybe things continue to evolve in a way in the manga, but from what we witnessed in the anime, I don't know, it just seems so strange and, like, sudden and a little forced.
Yeah, I'd say a little
Like,
forced.
he has to pick a girl because he needs to have a love interest. Now that he's resolved conflict within himself, he needs an external conflict, a love interest, a girl that he can look after.
And it's such a thing where logically both characters don't recognize the romantic attraction. It's really put out by other characters. Yeah. And that's what makes it feel forced. It's like, oh, now the teacher's like, oh, you like a girl. And it's like, but like they haven't shown anything like super romantic between them. Yeah. They don't really feel that way. Like they aren't recognizing romantic feelings.
Dynamic doesn't
it's being pushed by all the other characters, and then it starts to feel like that more towards the end, that there's a romantic thing because they've like put it on us.
Yeah. Because everyone else has spoken it into fruition. It's like up until all of this is introduced, like Ray basically feels like almost asexual.
Yeah, he's not worried about it at all.
Yeah, he has zero interest in anything like that. It's kind of, to me, anything, I caught the implication that, like, his adoptive sister perhaps assaulted him in some way.
Yeah, and that there was something there between them and there was a tension there. And I thought they would take it in that direction.
That's kind of what I would have thought, too.
But then the sister, like, really isn't there in season 2 at all. Like, I really expected that, like, her to be the narrative thrust of season 2 and for that arc to go somewhere, and the sister's just gone.
She's just gone.
And she felt so important, but then she just isn't there through most of season 2.
Which is kind of disappointing, because I definitely enjoyed the, like, dramatic nature of her dynamic with Ray, and then her relationship with the older guy, the older shogi player,
which is really interesting and weird because he like treats her like shit publicly, but then like it is implied they're fucking.
Like, definitely
they're fucking. And so it's like, what the fuck's going on? And we don't get any resolution with that.
That dude is like not hardly present in the second season if he shows up.
He's set up like this big like bad guy.
He's a big villain because Ray immediately right out of the gate fucking hates him. You can it's like the most visceral reaction Ray has to a human being is to that man. Like he almost clocks this dude. He becomes almost physically violent upon being like antagonized by this guy.
Yeah. So we get season 2, and it goes through all of these big arcs, and I'm like, is it going to get back to the sister? Is it going to get back to the sister? Nope, never gets back to it. The thing I probably cared the most about learning, you know, and then it goes off on this whole bullying tangent that just lasted way too long.
He does go and visit his adoptive mom, but the sister's not there when he visits, so it's kind of like...
And that was good, but that was one of those, like, it's the last 2 episodes, let's give some sort of emotional closure, you know.
I mean, winding it back a little bit, one thing that kind of irked me, and maybe it's just me being kind of silly, but at the start of, I think it's the start of the second season, when Ray joins the science club.
Yes.
And they make the fucking ramune candy.
Oh, yeah.
And Ray eats the ramune candy, and he just starts, like, crying, because it's the most amazing thing he's ever experienced, and I'm like, bitch, every day you go to the comfiest house in the world and the most gorgeous woman cooks a delicious fucking meal for you, and you're gonna lose your shit over ramune candy.
It's because he doesn't have any bros at school, okay? Those are girls forcing themselves on him and like women. But he wants bros. He wants friends at school. He's never had friends at school, man. This is important. Friends at school matter. They totally matter. This is significant.
God damn it. Yeah. Why? What is wrong with you?
I don't know how much more I have to say. It's lots of scatterbrained thoughts, but yeah, I mean, great show. If it's your genre, it's probably a masterpiece. If it's not your genre, it's still pretty good. You just might get kind of bored.
You might get a little bored with
the bullying. You might get a little bored.
A character they introduced, they fleshed out a bit in season 2 that I enjoyed. Soya finally became an actual character. I thought it was really neat that they incorporated him being deaf, and like the way Ray finds out about it, and they learn about how he navigates the world with his impediment.
He was a moe boy. He was a nice moe boy.
I was like, cool, this guy's neat. I like this guy. Cool.
And it's like this fucking 4-episode arc that comes out of nowhere. That's the thing, is like the arcs feel so like it just goes off in different directions, and then it's like a tangent for a bunch of episodes, and then it just like goes back. And like the structure I had commented on early in season 1 while we were watching it, that the whole thing has the chapter structure where it's
two-part
going
episodes.
by, in season 1 it feels like an American cartoon where it's 2-part episodes where it's like we focus on one plot, we focus on another plot, we focus on one plot, we focus on another plot, and it kept it really fresh and interesting because it would be like you go from slice of life to shogi, slice of life shogi, and you're always mixing it up and covering different things, and like the style would change based on the chapter. And then season 2 you get more of these like long chapter arcs, where it's like multi-episode stories, and like that kind of took me away from that feeling of like you feel like all of a sudden you haven't seen the other characters in forever. And then it gets back to them, and you're like, I don't even know what the fuck's going on with them anymore.
Yeah, like how much time has passed?
Yeah, and then really it's like you do this whole shogi arc, and you're like deep into shogi for a little while, and then you go back to bullying, and you're like, I don't care. Yeah. Now I'm invested in shogi shit. I don't really care about bullying right now. I'm not really sure where our main character's motive, like, where his train of thought is connecting between, like, being really invested in the shogi plot line and then really invested back into his bullying plot line. It's kind of jumping around a bunch. Probably a lot smoother in manga, you know?
Probably. Definitely the pacing of the first season is a lot tighter. It almost feels like the way that you experience real life, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge jumble of different things you experience on a day-to-day basis, and the first season really captured that well, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we had a lot of different... Like, he would go through a lot of different feelings and phases based on, like, you know, like, the tone of him alone in an apartment is so different from him with other people that it creates, like, all these different feelings. And then you get, like, oh, now it's a backstory chapter, and now it's a new chapter relevant to what the backstory was, and it just had a lot more sort of flowing variety.
Sorry.
But, yeah, good shit.
Yeah.
I don't regret watching it, you know?
No, yeah. I would definitely agree. So first season, I would probably give like a 8.5 to a 9. Second season, more like a 7.5, 7.
Yeah.
So all evens out to an 8.
Overall 8, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fun time. Would recommend. I can't imagine, it's like, this is the kind of video where I'm like, anyone who's interested in the show didn't watch it because they don't want to get spoiled. Anyone who has seen the show, anyone who's seen this show thinks it's a fucking masterpiece and is gonna hate any criticism that we give.
Yeah.
And so it's really tricky. So I was telling Digi.
Oh god.
That like this is just one of those things where I feel like anyone who's seen the whole thing is generally gonna be the kind of person who was really into it from the start and fucking loved it and thinks it's a masterpiece, because this is the kind of show where if you're not into it you probably gave up early on, and so you didn't make it to the end. So like we're probably one of the rare people that like aren't super into the style and genre but made it to the end because we were invested enough and because people call it a masterpiece that of course we watched the whole thing, you know. And but then we come away with a kind of middling opinion, because not a lot of people, I think, with a middling opinion finish the show and talk about
Watch 50 episodes and then talk about it,
because 50 episodes is a big investment. And then when I say that, I feel like I'm like, oh, I didn't like this show, but I fucking sat through the whole thing. Like, no, I loved the show. Like I liked it a lot.
It was really good. Definitely, we wouldn't watch 50 episodes of something that was shit.
Yeah, it's really good. It's just like I didn't feel that like, ooh, this is a must-watch for literally everyone who's ever watched anime, and it's a 10 out of 10. Like,
yeah,
it's just pretty good if you're into
I think
sports slice of life.
If it's your genre, then it's fucking sick.
But I could imagine a lot of people being bored, you know?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of
I wouldn't
things,
recommend it for everyone.
I totally get it. As a person who likes the things that I do, it's like, I fucking love Reanimator. Does everyone in the world love Reanimator as much as I do? Definitely not.
Yeah.
But that's just your personal taste, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's not good. Just means some people are gonna like it a little more.
I'd say if you're 17, must watch.
Sure.
Must watch.
If you're in high school, do it.
Yeah, gave me a good fucking Kare Kano vibes.
I've never seen Kare Kano.
Jeez. How can you have a teenage existential crisis without seeing Kare Kano? That was like literally me when I was 14. All right.
Literally me. Bye.